Solomon continues on here as he's begging his son to listen to wisdom and instruction. In the next paragraph, and starting in verse 14 of chapter 4, it reads, "Enter not into the path of the wicked." He started out the book with that, with the first couple of Proverbs. "And go not in the way of evil men," similar to what he had said in the first chapter. "Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it, and pass away." Don't even follow that path, just keep your feet from those steps. "For they don't sleep except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away." They can't sleep unless they cause some to fall. So they're restless like demons. One thing that we can learn from the enemy is to be diligent. He is constantly nagging at you, right? Well, shouldn't you learn from him and constantly nag at the Lord? Like that importunate woman that just wouldn't leave that judge alone, right? That just was pleading and pleading and pleading for food. And so what happens is, "For they sleep not, except that they're causing some trouble. They eat the bread of wickedness." Just like you're supposed to eat the food, eat the life, eat the experience of mercy and instruction, they eat the food of wickedness. They drink the wine of violence. So the bread and the wine here are not what Christ offers, like in the communion service, for example. He would offer the good bread, unleavened, and the new wine, which is not of violence, but of peace that passes understanding. So in verse 18, "The path of the just is as the shining light that shines more and more unto the perfect day." And so I want that path. I want a path that is just, without condemnation, that shines bright. In fact, I want to be like Paul. I want to be a pestilent fellow. I wish that my light would shine everywhere I go so that the darkness will dispel. Now we know the enemy doesn't like that, and he's always trying to put up roadblocks and people to stand in your way and say, "No, that's not true." I have gone through that so many thousands of times. In fact, the Desire of Ages says of Christ that almost the entire Jewish nation was turned against him to speak against the things he was teaching. My wife pointed that out the other day in her devotions. She read that and she thought how interesting that was, and I mentioned to her, I know what that's like. One of my experiences was going to Australia. The president of the entire country of Australia sent messages to every single one of the churches, telling them not to come to the series of meetings that I was holding. Since then, I have not been publishing ahead of time where I'm going and what I'm doing, so the enemy can't go ahead and try to beat the punches, if you will, by throwing the left and the right before you even get there. So sometimes just breaking out in surprise and saying, "Hey, this is where I'm going," is a good idea. Now, it doesn't feel good to have that happen. In fact, it's quite frustrating, but I do have a little bit of a sense what Christ went through when that was going on. And so when you're shining, when you're walking on the path of the just and you're trying to proclaim the truth, the enemy is going to do all sorts of things to either take your life, as he has tried many times, and or confuse what you're saying, depending on how much the Lord allows. Now, his word does not come back to him void, as it says in Isaiah 55. So I can take courage, even though it's really hard, I can take courage that God has not been taken by surprise. I'm thankful for that. So looking at this, that the path of the just is shining as a shining light that shines more and more into the perfect day. Well, the way of the wicked is as darkness, and it gets darker and darker. They know not at what they stumble because they can't see, right? That's why you don't stumble, is because you have the angels upholding you so you don't dash your foot against a stone. But darkness causes people to stumble. So it makes a lot of sense that the Lord of heaven wants us to stay on the path of righteousness for his name's sake, as it says in Psalm 23. But you can't do that alone. You've got to do that filled with God's Spirit. His word is spirit. His angels are spirits. They co-work together, bringing you understanding about the word of God, and they keep you from falling, keep you in the way that you have chosen, so you don't stumble like those in darkness. I want to be one of those guys, and so I'm praying that the Lord will continue to bless as he uses me as one of his servants.